IQ function at age 5 to 6. In our country, probably at age 5 to 6 days. But probably in other countries, some different. So about in the United States, they took the blood spot at age first. Anyhow, we took the blood spot, next step it is. And we make a blood spot like this, and put on the piece of paper, and make like this, and send to the central laboratory to measure the similar substances. Next step is. So this is the data right now. We started in 1977, so it means we have already almost 24 years experience, and we have done already 25 million newborn babies last 24 years. And we found hyperphenylanemia and PKU, and 424 patients up to the 1999, something like this. So the incidence in Japan is 1 in 78,000. But in the United States, 1 in 15,000. In Germany, only 1 in 70,000. So the rate of incidence is completely different in Japan and other countries. If you're looking at phenylketonuria, PKU. And MSUD, maple silk urine disease, also a similar situation. But if you see that here, congenital hypothyroidism, you have already found 5,000 babies, and incidence is 1 in 4,000. And also USA 1 in 4,000. In the whole country, whole area, the incidence of hypothyroidism is very similar. And also congenital adrenal hyperplasia, we found almost 700 patients. And then this is 1 in 15,000, and also in the United States 1 in 80,000. So it's very similar. So except to this disease, other one is completely different. When I'm talking about that instance of the disease. Okay, next slide please. This is the data, and this age, the IQ level. This line indicated a mean of DQ or IQ. DQ means all same meaning to IQ. The mean of IQ level of 128 patients diagnosed before the initiation of the screening program. So before initiation program, we have this kind of this sort of the IQ levels. In other words, if patient age as age increased, then IQ levels coming to down gradually. And say about 12 years old, at that time probably under 40 IQ levels will get. Next slide please. But right now, almost all. I would not say all, that is not several exceptional cases, but anyhow, almost all children in PKU is coming to normal IQ levels. Both patient, she is a physician, German physician. She is also with PKU. So right now, especially in the PKU, phenylketonuria, and also congenital hypothyroidism, we have no problem. When we found a very early stage, just over 5 days or 6 days of age, then we can treat them. Then we can get very nice data, very nice intelligence. Next slide, please. So what is our issue right now in Japan? Not only in Japan, but also in the whole world. First, 1% I discussed later. And second, cost benefit, also I discussed later. The third is obvious blood spot. After they finish this kind of testing, usually we kept the blood spot for a long time, especially for the confirmation of the disease. But recently, the people going to use, they have like this. No, not over there. Not here. Look at them. Yes, usually we kept use blood spots for a confirmation later if there's something trouble. But these spots are also useful for another research, such as DNA analysis. So people said this is as biobank or banking of newborn blood spot. So many countries kept those blood spots for a long time. Say in this paper said that in New Zealand, in that country, in New Zealand, they have been kept for more than 30 years, kept the samples, intending to do the analysis, intending to do another examination, another study. So I'll have to discuss later also, because it's depending on the getting to the informed consent, because there's no informed consent when we kept blood spot for a long time. The next is social perception. What is social perception? It means what kind of disease we can choose for the newborn screening. Right now we use the newborn right now we choose the disease which is treatable or preventable. But in the future, probably we're going to include the disease which is not treatable, not preventable sometimes. So in other words, what is the benefit for the what's the benefit for the children, or what is the benefit for the family members? I'll get explained also. And the fifth is a genetic discrimination. This is really happening in Japan. Life insurance company in Japan refused to have contract to children with disease found by mass screening, even in the case of PKU and hypothyroidism. I told you before, PKU hypothyroidism, we can treat, they have lower IQ levels, but still, Japanese insurance company, they refuse to have contract. Next slide, please. Okay. So newborn screening is a part of genetic testing. Yes, it is genetic testing. It is generally accepted that before the genetic testing is proposed, appropriate family-centered genetic counseling is required. Because our gene, my gene, is not only my private property, but also which I share, my gene I share with my children or also my parents. So genetic testing also has kind of the family-centered issues, so that the appropriate family-centered genetic counseling is required, and voluntary choices and the legally informed consent has to be obtained. This is the golden rule for the genetic testing. Okay, next slide, please. So the parents have the right to decision concerning health care of their offspring. Yesterday we discussed the parent has a right or a duty or something like this, but I would like to say the parent has the right. And therefore, the parent can refuse newborn screening based on the religious or cultural practice. Some parents can refuse, theoretically. Next slide, please. But if you think about it, parents should accept newborn screening for the infant, since any proxy decision should be of benefit to the non-competent persons in question. It's a newborn babies. If parents refuse the newborn screening, the infant will lose opportunity for a correct diagnosis and effective treatment, and mental retardation could ensure. So that's why I would have said that parents should accept the newborn screening. So I would like to ask you that, just thinking about when we did or when we'll do the newborn screening on a voluntary basis or mandatory basis. If we do the mandatory basis, all newborn infants will be covered by these systems. So there is no need for consent. Parental knowledge about mass screening often will be limited. Follow-up study will not always be available. This happens in Japan, as some patients, some doctors, they refuse to send us the data. So we cannot do follow-up study in that case. It should not be included in the program if the efficacy of treatment is not available or uncertain. This issue I discussed later. But anyhow, if we try to mandatory basis, something is good, but something wrong. Next slide, please. And when performed voluntary basis, screening is done after obtaining informed consent. This will be preferable because the efforts that will be fostered in the health care system follow-up study are feasible. Maternal cognition about mass screening is generally improved. It is for which treatment is uncertain, but for which early diagnosis will aid the family could be included. Just think about Duchenne muscular dystrophy. If we do that newborn mass screening for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, we can exactly give the correct diagnosis of Duchenne muscular dystrophy at age 7 or 8, something like this. This diagnosis is not useful for the baby itself, but this information will be useful for the family. So in that case, we have to ask the parent, to do this kind of research, this kind of screening, and also we should have the informed consent. Otherwise, we cannot do that. Voluntary system will not be accomplished by the increased number of infants. They said that if we try to do the voluntary basis, probably many parents will refuse. Some people say that, but actually it's not. It's not increased. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is, I would like to introduce the paragraph of the Principle of Bioethics Roundtable, Vision Materials. What they say that in many clinical circumstances, the weight of respectful autonomy is in minimum, and the weight of non-beneficence or beneficence is maximum. Similarly, in public policy, the demand of the justice can easily outweigh the demand of respectful autonomy. And they say that like this, and also based on this concept, WHO, I bring here, is a guideline for WHO. What they say that, inside of WHO, they say that newborn mass screening should be mandatory and free of charge if early diagnosis treatment will benefit the newborn. So they suggest us we can do the newborn screening in mandatory basis, in other words, without consent. But if the early diagnosis and treatment will benefit for the newborn, only in that case. Next slide, please. So now we discussed about those issues, and we conclude in Japan, neonatal screening requires voluntary consent from the parent, as through the explanation of the purpose and other information on the test must be given before the consent. For this purpose, we make videotape. We make a videotape and showing the general profile of the testing, including the procedure, outcome, and parents' society of affected children. Next slide, please. So, what is going right now in the United States? Most of the states, except only 2 states. And one is state. Maryland, yes, on the Maryland state. Anyhow, 2 states provide newborn screening on mandatory basis by law in the United States. There are several arguments in favor of not seeking parental permission for newborn screening. Why? First, they said that. They say means it is described exactly in the paper in Pediatrics, which published in 2000, like this. And what they said that first, perhaps the most important is that screening and potential decision is in the interest of the child, and the parent objections should not hinder that screening progress. The second argument is that it is not feasible or it is too costly to talk to the parent and ask permission. The current approach in Maryland is a simple, good, well-informed consent for the total screening. This is just like in Japan, and does not allow for the separate consent or refusal for the research. In each disorders. Okay, next slide, please. So, including the whole things, probably it will conclude like that. For the disease treatable or preventable, mandatory screening is accepted. But parents should be given full information about screening and have the opportunity to refuse to have their newborns tested. This refusal should be documented in writing. This phrase is coming from this pediatrics journal. In the United States, they also say the same way. However, it must be noted that health professionals have a duty to attempt to persuade parents to consent to have their child screened where there is uncertainty. If there is some uncertainty as to the benefit for the child being tested, the screening should not be carried out if informed consent is denied. Without informed consent, we cannot do that. Next slide, please. Okay, next discussion is economics and screening. Economics and health policy analysis use two types of the calculation. One is cost benefit, and the other one is cost effectiveness. We estimate the potential minimizing the cost and the potential for the achieving benefits with reduced mortality and morbidity. Next slide, please. So cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness analysis compares the cost of doing something to the cost of doing nothing or doing something else. In Japan, Sashige analyzed and then concluded that net health serving. The next is what is a benefit, cost of benefit. Another aspect of benefit of screening, such as psychological benefit of the family, must be documented. You see, I told you before that we got good IQ levels on the patient. This is cost benefit. It's a real benefit. But what is a benefit? Because if we choose the DMA at the Duchamp's recipe I discussed before, in that case we can find out the patient, but we cannot do anything for the patient. But probably this information will be useful for the patient. But do you think this is a benefit? Or do you think it's not benefit? So we have to have that. We have to have discussion. But there is one paper here. It's written by Rost, and he asked the peoples in the New England, and what is they conclude? Okay, have more than 70 peoples in parent agree to do the mass screening, even if it's not treatable. They would like to know exactly correct diagnosis before the clinical manifestation. So I would like to ask you, how do you think? What is the benefit? The benefit for the individual, the student, or benefit for the family? If you have if you give the correct diagnosis of the family, the parent will satisfy for the diagnosis, even if the treatment is not possible. What would you see? Next slide, please. This might be last slide, I think. The regional sports program, you see, should be used for the study originally not aimed only when the sample are anonymous or informed consent has been specifically obtained for such trial. This is the principle, I think. But right now, in the United States, they don't have the informed consent. I told you the report that they took the blood mandatory. And this issue is also discussed in the lesson paper. Banking newborn screen, newborn blood spot, moving beyond the screening and the treatment. It's a title. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. The next, please. Where's the microphone? Thank you. Perfect. Awesome. You see, our team of students is working very well.
In the lunchtime, Darrell said I didn't speak today, so I have lots of comments now.
Okay, I'm going to hear.
And,
Accept.
yeah, it was very interesting paper, but I just want to, especially your one thing on cost of doing something.
Cost.
Cost of doing something, cost of doing nothing, and cost of doing something else. So it revolves around all those things. I just want to give a hypothetical case in India, and it's also partially true. A poor patient goes to a medical geneticist and tries to get the test done.
Genetic testing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he finds that the first child is suffering from, let's say, cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
And he already has 2 sons, and the wife is pregnant again, and the doctor says that the chances of getting the baby with cystic fibrosis again is 50%.
25%.
25%, yeah. So in that case, the poor person goes and says that I still want the baby. He says the reason is, first of all, if the child is not born, there are chances of that anyway his 2 sons are suffering, and so he has his 3rd son again goes and dies for the same disease. But they still want the child.
With normal or with?
Even if it is suffering.
Even if active. Okay.
Even if it is suffering. To show that his wife can conceive, at least. That's one thing. And
his wife want to have a baby, okay?
Yes.
Yes, and even if they're affected with cystic fibrosis.
Yeah, and that's very important in Indian culture, that women can conceive, at least can conceive.
Okay.
And secondly, if you try to look the same thing from a different perspective, it comes I'm not sure how many number of diseases have been included to be covered in the insurance.
In Japan, you mean?
In Japan, but in India it's not.
Insurance, health insurance is covered all kind of disease.
Yeah.
Okay.
In India it's not.
Life insurance is different.
Yeah.
Okay.
In India it's not done. We don't have a public health insurance system. And the cost of cystic fibrosis testing in India costs $6.
Okay.
It's around 285 rupees for one disease. And if it is Down syndrome, it's around 525 rupees, which is more higher. So, this poor person, he still wants the baby, but the cost of having the baby or cost of losing the baby doesn't matter to him anyway. That's one I want your views on that aspect. And suddenly, and also you mentioned about the psychological effect of having the benefit. That was the one I was referring to. So in the countries like ours, I mean, where you don't have the health insurance systems, you have a vast majority of people living in poor villages. They don't know screening of newborn or prenatal or postnatal screening. I mean, how would you say that it is beneficial to them when they just try to remain neutral for that, whether it doesn't affect?
Okay. Good point. I think, as I would like to discuss something like this, you see, the benefit is only, in other words, who can decide what is the benefit? In your case, as parent can only decide it is a benefit or not. It means to have opportunity to have a screening or not. You refuse the opportunity for screening, because if you refuse the opportunity for screening, you will have a baby 25% with disease, but 75% with a normal baby. Okay, so that how do you think the parent? How do you decide the parent? It's only depend on the parent. And our side, the doctor side, we cannot say anything. We can give just only information, correct information, and also support. In other words, if you decided you have a baby with disease, then we said, okay, if you have a baby, we can support you. Okay? If you have said that we don't want to have a baby with disease, okay, I also support you. I would like to introduce for gynecologist. This is only our side decision. Okay?
Thank you. Margaret, we can look for you today.
I'd like to know your opinion on the situation present in the Netherlands.
President what?
In the Netherlands.
Holland.
Oh yeah, okay.
At present, a full package of testing in the Netherlands is not allowed, which has made some physicians worried because they're not allowed to suggest any kind of testing to patients. They have to come up with the ideas themselves. The reasoning of the government is that if ever they would offer a package that would be the same as population screening, which is of course, well, an old situation in the country. But on the other hand, practices like abortion are very liberal, and I'd like to hear your view on this situation.
Oh, I cannot say that. This is your own country decision.
I don't want to hear your view about my country, only about the situation.
In our country, you mean?
No, this hypothetical situation.
Hypothetical situation.
If this would happen in Japan, this kind of situation, what would you think of that?
Oh,
What would you think if Japan was like the Netherlands?
it's very difficult to say that because it really depends on the culture and society. You see, in my case, I can just say that if you do that in screening, you have to have people's consent first, and second, before the consent, you have to have many opportunity to teach, to education of the pregnant women. Then after, what you decide.
The idea is that the individual would be pressurized, for example, to have an abortion because certain diseases might...
No, it's really dependent on practice. I don't need that people. This is dependent on the parents. If the parents decided to have abortion, the parents have decided to have a baby, even if with a disease, the parents can do that.
The argument
say that. And our side is what kind of the decisions you make, we have to support. You see, if it's that is our.
I think you don't understand the meaning. The government is afraid that if people have the possibility to know about the possible diseases of the child before he's born, that they feel morally obliged to have an abortion, and also socially that people might put pressure onto them.
I know, I understand that.
And so these individual decision making.
That's right, it's individual. Otherwise, eugenics, you see, if you have a baby with this kind of disease, you shoot abortion. If I say this way, this is really eugenics.
What is screen?
So I think, thank you. I think it's clear you're saying it's up to the parents, and really the government shouldn't intervene either way. Okay, I'll start here and go across. Please make them brief.
Thank you very much. I have a comment and I have a question. And I'd like to ask a question first. It is very simple. How you said that off-used blood spot were kept in the somewhere.
Even in Japan also.
Yeah. So whether this kind of sample anonymized or non-anonymized, it is my question.
It's usually it's a it's a normalized. So in other words, right now we keep sample with a name.
With a name.
With a name.
Okay.
But if you like say that if you say to me you would like to do some research, say about DNA, this and some that. In that time we have to cut off the name and then give you the blood samples. This is our way, but no one right now doing this way. But in other words, such kind of research is not conducted in Japan right now. But this is the way.
Okay. So you mean that for therapy purpose, it is non-anonymized, but the research purpose, it is anonymized in or
right now, in New York State, they have, if in that case, the last case, we have to inform consent again to the parents. Otherwise, we cannot do it.
Okay. And
we should have a name. Otherwise, you see, you have some trouble. It's 1 year later, and another doctor asked me that we check whether what kind of you see.
I see.
Then that we need a name.
Okay. And my comment is that the real situation of Japan of the this kind of newborn screening, I think that it's like you are right that it is on the voluntary basis now. Voluntary basis.
Okay.
But but actually, it seems like mandatory, especially for the mothers of the child. So it means that almost all newborn had mass screening by blood test. So it becomes so routine procedure.
Yeah.
So almost all mothers or parents never asks or inform and ask us consent. For example, my son was born at small, not hospital, but born with the help of the midwife. So there is no doctor attended. But my wife never asked to let the baby give the sample of the blood. So this is the actual situation, I think. So this is my comment and information.
Yes, I know that. It's because we did survey very recently. We found that some more than 60% in the hospital they are not doing consent actually. But we have a system, but the system is not work right now. But you see, right now we like to say that the disease itself is treatable and preventable. That's why right now we say that probably don't lie. But in the future we should have consent.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid to, there's 3 people with their hands up, but I'm afraid we have to move on. Thank you very much for So the next paper is from A. Kasuda, on community engagement and the HAPMAP
Are you the
project in
college of
Japan.
Echo before? Whoever's from Glasgow. Then you must know Liu San. And
Hello everyone.
they
My
are
name is Eiko
family, Liu San's family.
Today I'd like to talk about our activities in HAPMAP project in Japan. It is an international
The
genetic
project
study
title,
and
he's now in America. But I heard that possible to have a project in Taiwan, but now there's some problem.
it is an international genetic study and we studied to work regarding
He said
sampling
he's
sample
not having
collection
problem.
and health issues in Japanese working group from the spring of last year. Today's title is Community Engagement and the HAPMAP project in Japan. Excuse me, I'd like to have a seat because my hands.
Okay.
The Habitat Mapping Project, HAPMAP project, is a US NIH-initiated international genetic study. It's a public study and is an international collaboration between researchers in USA, UK, Japan, and China and Canada. The official launch was October 29, 2002, and in Japan, we have been approved by Tokyo University's IRB on February 13. So now we are rapidly launching concrete activities. There are mainly two purposes in this project. One is making a haplotype map of about 10 populations in the world. 100 DNA samples each from 10 selected populations, including Japanese, will be analyzed, and a haplotype map of each population will be constructed. In this project, only the information about which area the sample came from will be put into the public database. All samples should be collected with proper informed consent process under each community's engagement. Next slide, please. Since this project is to study genetic variation, especially community engagement is in each population is regarded as well as the informed consent process. An LC and sample collection group is established in each area that sample will be collected in work in a way which is appropriate for each area with different cultural, ethical, legal, and social background. Japanese LC and sample collection group consists of Professor Ichiro Mitsuda in Hokkaido Health Science University, Dari and I in Device Ethics Institute. Although actually the whole concrete actions are just studied now, we are working to make community engagement in HAPMAP project through the process of focus group meetings and community advisory group. I'd like to explain details about them later. We are also working for sample collecting process regarding informed consent, privacy protection issues, and so on. Next slide, please. In Asia and Japan, genetic databases have been established in all countries that conduct genetic research at similar rates to global trends. There are already a number of genetic databases in Asia and Japan, and we can expect further exponential growth. Some of them has been conducted by local researchers, while some have been proceeded by outsiders such as foreign academic collaborators and multinational companies. Next slide, please. There are some ethical issues surrounding genetic research in Asia and Japan. There are differences in the extent of truth-telling in medicine compared with other areas in the world. Informed consent is being introduced in Asia and Japan and can be expected to be the norm for the 21st century in the informed age. A family decision is still often sometimes seen in disease versus family risk and the right not to know.
Asia lags behind North America in the inclusion of genetics in medical school, and training varies widely. There may not be well coordinated or central data collecting for checks on accuracy. Next slide, please. The findings of earlier numerous opinion surveys and interviews conducted by Maser among persons in different cultures let us see how ideas are used in making decisions when people faced with moral dilemmas. Some earlier surveys Maser has conducted suggest countries in Asia have greater enthusiasm for certain techniques and different concerns about privacy of genetic information. Next slide, please. This year, a new survey to numerous ordinary people in Japan was conducted by Dario Masakazu and some others of us. The questions were asked to ordinary Japanese people. This is the question. Would you be willing to give blood from which DNA would be extracted to be put anonymously into a DNA bank so that researchers could study human genetic variation? This research would not personally help you, but would be useful for medical research in general. And we asked about the reason why. We asked to choose from these answers. Yes, in general. Yes, only for the temporary bank. Yes, for permanent bank. No, or don't know. Next slide, please. 44% say yes to blood donation for DNA bank. 26 were negative to donate, and 28 answered they don't know. 1/3 of the yes group allowed to donate their blood only for temporary stage. Next slide, please. To analyze the reasons of their attitude toward blood donation for DNA bank, we classified their comments into 20 categories. This group has placed in this graph has placed the 20 categories into 5 groups. For the progress in science and medicine, to help other groups, to help other people or public society, if there are personal benefits, and conditionally, for example, anonymous only for public bank, necessary of personal notification, and negative reasons. This slide shows the number of comments in each group. More than half of comments from yes group, these 3 groups, were support for science and medicine. We also found some particular comments for yes group categorized into help others, especially among people who accepted to donate their sample for permanent or not specified DNA bank. The comments which were categorized into conditionally could be found in all groups, but especially in negative group. This category is second mention. Many of comments mention that since they can't understand about the research itself or the significance of the research, they can't decide easily to say yes. And there were several comments which mention about personal benefit. We found some wishes of ordinary people, for example, the result would be utilized for themselves, would like to know their own genetic information, and certain compensation for donation. Among comments categorized into negative reasons, with red one, we could find some comments just fear, bad feeling to be utilized their own DNA for unknown research without any notification to them, distrust to researchers or private companies, just burden, unclear about the significance of such researches, and so on. Next slide, please. This is the results of another question about the consideration of anonymity versus the benefit to know individually useful genetic information. The question is here: would you prefer to learn any genetic information that might help you lower your risk of death, although the sample could not then be anonymous, assuming researchers still protected your privacy. The results for the two questions were analyzed. People who answered yes to the donation for DNA bank, these three groups, tended to show a positive attitude more frequently to know their genetic information if that is useful for their welfare, even if the sample comes to be not anonymous. While people who answered no to donation for the DNA bank showed a more negative tendency to know the genetic information than the yes group people for the DNA bank. From the comments they made for the previous question, it is speculated that they feel bad for their DNA to be utilized for research because of fear of harm or distrust feeling. Next slide, please. From the survey, it seems that there might be the background in Japanese society to accept blood donation for DNA bank. We could find many comments to say that if it's useful for medical, scientific progress, or if it helps other people, I'm willing to donate my sample. A few persons had strong distrust in scientists or private companies though. In the community engagement and sample collection process in HAPMA project, I think there are many important components as shown here. Community engagement is not community consent. Next slide, please. For that purpose, we will establish focus groups. We will recruit the members of focus groups by the method called snowball sampling. In the focus group meetings, necessary information will be provided and mutual discussion about any interests or concerns about the project will be discussed. After several meetings, we will ask two members to consider about participating in this project. Next slide, please. To make ordinary people involved in the continual discussion, the Community Advisory Group, CAG, will be established after finishing DNA sampling. The CAG will include some members involved in the HAPMA project in Japan, media persons, and ordinary citizens, including sample donors. It will investigate the applications for the use of Japanese sample, and it is the contact point for the IRB of the US repository. It also will receive reports about the HAPMA project progress from researchers. Next slide, please. We can ask what kind of DNA databases conducted with what kind of process are ideal in the future in Japan. Community engagement will be very essential. And I think we need to consider to explain to ordinary people about not only the risks but also benefits or the meaning of participation in the studies. We have a famous long-term epidemiological study in Japan, the Hisayama study. It continued about 40 years to collect detailed health data and dissection results of about 80% of residents in Hisayama town. In this study, they started to collect blood samples of residents for genetic study from last year. As the 80% high acceptance ratio for dissection shows, there is a mutual trust relationship established for a long time between participants and scientists in this study. Another subject to consider is individual duties towards the social good. If it will be the social good, do we have duties to cooperate? I think we could find from our survey that Japanese have the capability to feel such a community sense with proper process and frameworks to have mutual and open discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Eiko. Thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions or comments? Anybody rolling up their sleeves already? Okay, Bauchi and then Jade.
I have a comment. I'm taking a project in China. It's about ethical issues about database, and I'm very interested in this because the large scales and population-based database, it has a extremely medical potential to help people to have bring health in medicine areas. And at the same time, we need to consider about the donors who give the DNA samples, whose autonomy, to respect their autonomy, privacy, and confidentiality. And at the same time, we cannot ignite that individuals also benefit from the others who contribute to medicine to improve the health, the population health. So at the same time, we respect the individual's autonomy and privacy, and for each individual also have a duty to contribute themselves to society, to community, to improve the health, global health.
So a comment for Jade.
My comment is all the germplasm of Indian plants are in America. All the Vedic literature on medicine, they're all in UK. So why the blood sample should be deposited in IRB in US?
International repository?
Why send it to
Finish.
somewhere else?
It's very tough question. Because actually, we found some difficulties to persuade some geneticists in Japan about sending samples to abroad. Especially, I think Japanese tend to feel some difficulties or fear to send DNA sample to abroad, such as to say DNA is kind of property of our country. So I can understand your comments very well, but this project is not study on the disease study to find some genes related to particular disease. This is very general genetic study. So maybe I could understand Bauchi's comments very well, but maybe the situation is that there might be some different situations in this study. And one of the purpose of this project is establish some repository of cell lines of healthy people's DNA as of various populations. That will become to be, for example, control groups for some particular study in the future. So I think it will become kind of the property of all people in all countries, not only in special group. I hope so.
Please pass to Chalmers next.
Thank you very much, Michael. I was wondering if you have a similar program to ELSI of the Human Genome Project in the HapMap project, because there are very real concerns about ethno-terrorism, etc.,
the results of this particular project. So, do you have a similar LC program here? The ethical, legal, social implications program. HAPMA project.
In general.
Yeah, the whole project itself. Yes, of course we have.
And what are the issues they are considering or planning to consider, which are specific to HAPMA project rather than the bigger?
Maybe I think one of them is community engagement activity. To establish community, not consent, community engagement to discuss about this project in different, each communities. I mean, we will, for example, is it okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Margaret and then Frank.
Are there legal requirements for exporting DNA to other countries in Japan?
No, I don't think so. Legal. No, I don't think so.
Frank's okay. Frank?
Chama mentioned ethno-terrorism. In this morning's papers and in yesterday's internet news, there was an announcement that scientific journals have agreed to stop publishing articles that give information that might be used for biological or chemical warfare. I want to ask you, you raised a very interesting question. I want to ask if your data were to turn out to be useful for ethno-terrorism, would you refrain from publishing it?
Yes, I know very well about such a tendency. We can see recently, especially recently. I really know about such tendency. We can see, especially recently in the world. But about habitat mapping project data, sorry.
In the line of Frank's thought, all these blood samples are bound to contain new sequences. Are you going to patent it? On whose name? And if you want to patent it, will you discuss it in a meeting like this?
About patenting or licensing to about on the results of habitat mapping project is under discussion now. Very similar discussion to
Then the benefit of money accruing from this patenting should go back to the patient who gave the blood.
No.
You should go back.
Yeah, but
Because it is his property, not yours.
there is one point we have to discuss now.
We cannot,
Yes,
Yes.
that's true.
we can give that as a benefit to the society, but
Yes.
not.
Actually, in habitat mapping project, all samples are anonymous, as Professor Matsuda said. So it's impossible to benefit back to the participants.
I'd like to hear a little more about the sampling procedures that you followed. How do you find only 100 people out of all communities of the world you want to represent? 100, okay.
100.
Okay, so
100 each.
from each of the...
Yes.
Okay. So what are the 10 different racial, geographical, or different types of communities that you've selected or categorized?
Could you repeat this?
You say that you've divided all the samples into 10 categories. That means 100 from each of the categories of the 10 categories, right?
Which groups in the project? Which ethnic groups?
Including Japanese, Chinese, Yoruba, it's African population, and African American population in the United States, African Chinese population in America. And from Italy,
Caucasian, just one Caucasian. Just one Caucasian and Japanese and Oriental, Caucasian and from Africa. Is a main. The Asian means China and Japan. That's all.
sorry.
So let me add a couple of comments. The complete genome sequence for the Japanese genome, the Han Chinese, the Yoruban, which is a Nigerian, will be sequenced as one of the products of a sample collection of haplotype mapping. Where Eiko and myself are collecting the blood samples. They are going to be sent to the University of Shinsu University to make cell lines anonymously. Shinsu University person, Dr. Fukushima, will select randomly without telling anyone else 100 of 140 cell lines to send to University of Tokyo, and in fact, he will retain these cell lines as a Japanese cell line collection, and the same set of cell lines will be sent to Correal repository in the United States, so that internationally there is a global control model, as Eiko has explained. That's the reason. The University of Tokyo, Yusuke Nakamura, will be involved in analysis of the samples, and therefore is a leader of a haplotype mapping project in Japan. But we're doing a sample collection independently to make sure there's a separation of the different parts of the project to protect the privacy and anonymity of the persons who want to donate their blood. There are also side projects involving other ethnic groups, as Ichiro has mentioned. And these include smaller groups of persons to cover further ethnic groups, for example, Indians from the subcontinent of India that happen to be living in the United States, for example. I think, okay. So, okay, we have two more persons and they haven't spoken much today, so I'll give them a chance. Morgan and then Michael.
Just a quick question. There is enough genetic diversity to differentiate between, for example, Chinese and Americans and Chinese groups or African Americans and African groups. For example, like after migration to certain amount of time. Is that correct?
About 85% of the total human genetic diversity is found between any two persons, and about 10 or 15% is related to mutations that occurred in the last 100,000 years since we came out of Africa. Okay? So that's why most of the mutations occurred before 100,000 years ago when modern humans were forming. That's why we share the same diversity. But since in the last 100,000 years, we have about 15% of the genetic mutations occurring. And those mutations, we can find some which will be ethnically variant. Michael?
Yeah, dealing with blood sample is a very delicate issue. What safety measure have you put in place to ensure that individual will not be contaminated? I'm saying that dealing with blood sample is a delicate issue to avoid contamination or transferring of disease from individual. What safety measure has been put in place to avoid such a thing?
About the procedure, you're asking about the procedure of the safety. Are you asking about the infectious issues? For example, some infectious disease, we don't check before sending to Korea. It's a U.S. repository institute, and after the establishment of the cell lines from blood samples, they will check. So, and after that, only the samples not infected, they could check that is not infected, will be put into the bank. So, to protect individual privacy, we don't check before establishing the samples.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll move on. Okay, so the next paper is from Jung Yoon. Promise over privacy, the social perception of the protection of genetic information in Korea.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Today, I'm going to report the result of social survey conducted last October in Korea. And I feel really sorry that my colleague, who actually was in charge of conducting the survey, is not here with me. And his name is Sangbyung Cho, and he's a professor in mass communication studies at Chungnam National University. And for the presidential election of Korea last December, he served as the chairman of the technical consultants for the Korean broadcasting system. And the result was that the team was the best in predicting the percentage of votes with only 0.2% of discrepancy from the practice. So I give you this information in order to support the technical competence of this survey. And actually, in my scheduling, this presentation was given the priority over a dinner party hosted by the President of Korea. I declined to attend the dinner party in order to make this presentation. Next, please. Okay. The outline of my presentation is going to be why we do care about genetic privacy in Korea, and then what we found in social survey, and then finally I will discuss the implications of the research. Next, please. Okay. Why the issue of genetic privacy in Korea? Well, for research and clinical context, as have already been mentioned in this conference, there, for the research and clinical application of human genomics, we need database. We need to build up database, and in the build-up of the database, we have concerns over the access to individually identifiable genetic information to protect, the protection of genetic privacy. And we have some special social background in Korea to care about the genetic privacy. Actually, there has been very strong myths surrounding the genetic testing. What you know, what you can get from the genetics research. And in a sense, it's a kind of popular science or business. There has been rapid increase in the unregulated non-medical genetic testing. For example, how tall you would be. And somehow people are pretty much fascinated by what they know about themselves and their offsprings from the genetic testing. And there have been attempts to build up a genetic database by the Korean police and also some pseudo non-governmental organizations in order to identify children, the institutionalized children. And the NGOs have been adamantly against to build up that kind of database with their concerns over the potential forensic use. They think that the quasi-governmental NGOs have been interested in building up the database with the apparent purpose of promoting humanistic cause. However, their real intention is in their potential use for the forensic use in the future. So great suspicion, the break of trust, social trust has existed. Okay, so the LC project team, which I have led for the past 1.5 years, has proposed to develop a set of research ethics guidelines to protect to guarantee the genetic privacy for research and clinical application, and together with the guidelines, a set of manuals for education and mass communication and civil participation. Next, please. Thank you. So, in order to support this year's LC project, we conducted a social survey. And the data collection method was, the data was collected by telephone survey over 3 days last October, and the sample size was 1,100 people nationwide with age 60 or over. And the sampling was, it was quarter sampling, multi-step quarter sampling. Okay, next please. Okay, the findings was that the response was not that different depending on socio-economic variables except for age. So religion does not make much difference, and education level does not make much difference. Only age makes a difference. Okay, so let me go the question by question. Okay, so first I'm going to present the Korean general population's perception of the privacy for genetic information. So what would you do if requested to allow your blood sample for medical checkup to be used for research? Well, they are quite permissive and ask for more information from doctors, and that means they would agree after being given more information. Next, please. The same question is presented in, what is it?
Cake diagram, pie chart.
Okay, pie chart. Okay. So ask for information, ask for more information, and then agree. That occupies more than half of the responses. Okay, next please. Then, what would you do if your blood sample collected in the process of medical checkup and treatment were used for other purposes without being informed, prior informed consent? Don't care. It's not against my personal interest. that response takes up more than half. Next, please. This is the pie chart. And they don't know and don't care. So as long as their personal interests are not violated, they do not care much about informed consent. Next, please. Okay, next. What do you think about the following cases? So we provided 5 cases. Genetic data banks, actually these issues have been in question, have been discussed in Korea. So genetic data banks for institutionalized children and genetic data banks for forensic use, explicit forensic use, and genetic testing for new employees, and genetic testing for insurance, and genetic testing, pre-nuptial genetic testing, because it's not well kept, but according to Korean law, we are expected to exchange our health, checkup record before pre-nuptial exchange of health record. Okay, so next please. Okay, for genetic banks for institutionalized children, next please. Oh no, I don't have pie chart. Previous, please. Okay. For institutionalized children, how do you interpret the result of the response? What would be your interpretation? Definitely needed. There are some problems, but we need it. Takes up the large majority of the responses. Okay. Next, please. And the forensic data banks is the same, right? And next one. And for new employees, when you get employed, do you would you agree to go through the genetic testing? Well, no. Okay, next. And genetic testing for the acceptance to insurance program? No. Right? Okay. And next. And for pre-nuptial genetic testing? Well, may, right? Okay. Next. All right. This is the, the chart. So you can get the information, right? Okay, so next one. So what would be the overall impact of genetic testing? Well, don't know. 1/4 of the respondents do not know. And only 1/8 of the responses think it's harmful, and the others, the large majority thinks that it's okay with some problems, although with some problems. Okay, next please. Okay, next please. We try to ask about the perception of the privacy in general. In Korea, we have the national ID number system, and very often we are asked to provide our ID numbers for the application of, for many official documents, we have to do that. Okay, so what do you think about the following cases? Okay, video camera monitoring at public places. We gave the example of a shopping center. It's permissible, right, according to their responses. And monitoring of employees' internet access during work hours. No? Okay, next please. What do you usually do if requested to disclose your national ID number for discount card for merchandise and services at shops or for renting video cameras? if you fill out the card with national ID number, you can get discount. They usually, well, evenly divided. Okay, and next. So, how and what would be the interpretation of this research, and what steps do we have to take to protect genetic privacy in Korea? Okay, my interpretation would be like this. The potential benefits accruing from the utilization of genetic information loom larger than the concerns over privacy violations in Korea. So we are more attracted to promise than to the privacy concerns. The privacy awareness for a variety of personal information is not well developed, and the genetic information seems to be no exception. Next, please. Koreans are rather permissive of the utilization without prior consent of genetic information and blood sample unless personal interest in specific circumstances such as employment and insurance are at risk. However, the permissiveness towards the genetic privacy is not well reflected and coherent outlook. We interpret the result as, we interpret the phenomenon as resulting from the lack of information on the part of general public. Next, please. This observation is supported by our analysis of media coverage of the biotechnological issues over the past 6 or 7 years. So, the priority of my project should be given to the task of the production of information and effective delivery to the public of balanced information on diverse aspects of human genomics research in order to raise the public understanding of genomics technology and its social implications. And in my project, we have focused to encourage the production of information in a wide range of academic disciplines. Next, please. Okay, this is the end. And the main focus of my project this year has been to make people in various academic disciplines get interested and involved in this area. Thank you.
Okay, Clara first, please. I'll come with the microphone.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. I have a remark regarding the result. I think it could be applicable in other society as well, especially for this what you said about the children
Institutionalized children
and forensic maybe prisoners and others. I think there is here they allow your sample allow everything for those group, not for the employee or for others. Is there? I think there is a ethical problem here. We consider always those groups as it is easy to us to make everything. We have been taught always that, for example, for the to experience some vaccination or some other biological testing, we start by those groups. I think nothing has been done since maybe 1950 or 1940 about this. There is, I think the problem is there before we need genetic testing for SOS. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, let me give you one more piece of information. A few years ago, when a quasi-governmental NGO tried to promote to build up a database for institutionalized children, they mentioned the possibility of utilizing the genetic data bank to identify the family relationship once the two Koreas get united in the future. and it really appeals to the emotional code of many Koreans, especially from North Korea. I mean, South Koreans who came from North Korea 50 years ago.
Thank you very much. My question is relating to one of your first points and conclusions. You said that because of the potential benefits of the science itself, it actually scored over the privacy concerns. I'm wondering whether this result is because of the way your survey itself is worded. And when you actually formulated the questions for your survey and had discussions about how to formulate the questions and what to formulate or what to put into these questions, did you give it thought? Did you discuss on this aspect that, we are actually painting a glorious picture of science, and therefore how will it affect the people whom we ask questions?
Actually, we have had discussions over the issue. However, my colleague and I decided to, just try to have, what people expect or what people think of human genomics at this moment, without trying to educate or give them more information.
The first pie chart, if it's possible, Rick, please. The first, you mentioned that 53% in the first pie chart that they ask for more information to say yes, or they will make a decision after giving information. Because it seems to me it will change your strategy in future if you give the information to them and the majority say no, we are not going to agree.
Right. The exact wording of that response, that category was that I would decide, I would ask for more information from doctor and then decide. So I think your suggestion is very nice. Okay. I will incorporate your suggestion. Thank you very much.
Frank? Yeah, I just had a very simple question, which is, first place I want to thank you for coming here rather than going to the It's very bioethical. My question is simply, I heard that the world's first patients' rights law was in Korea. Is that true?
What do you mean?
I heard that Korea was the first country to have a patients' rights law.
Patients' rights law?
Yeah. Is that true or not?
To my knowledge, I do not know. And
okay. Thank you.
Eva is next, and then Barbara.
Okay, practically my comment is very similar to Alice's presentation for a wonderful presentation. I'm wondering about the problem of informed consent here. You emphasized a lot, if I understood it correctly, that people they actually agree if their samples are going to be used without their prior given informed consent, if that does not cause any kind of, let's say, personal damage for them. Does it mean that the physicians or the researchers in Korea, they don't tend to give a lot of information before some particular kind of research or treatment? Or does it mean that probably people mostly don't actually understand what informed consent means, and that is one of the basic rights as a patient or a subject or a human subject in a research to give their informed consent based on very extended information that physicians have to give them?
I agree with you. We have that kind of culture and social background. I agree with you. And one purpose of my project would be to raise the awareness of the necessity for informed consent, both for the professionals, I mean doctors and researchers, and the citizens as well. However, practice of concerning the efficacy of the practice of informed consent or complicated informed consent form has been taken issue. There have been reports in the United States claiming that the general public do not care much about detailed and specified informed contents as long as their personal interests are not violated.
Margaret's next.
Thank you for your talk. So, in England, a similar survey has been held, and I was wondering whether you had taken into account the differentiation possible within the categories that you asked about, what you responded. For instance, you asked about the forensic possibilities, and you asked whether people agreed or not. But in England, it turned out that it made a huge difference whether the forensic data were related to murders and rape, or to theft, or maybe corruption. And well, the latter two weren't seen as important at all, so people were against. As soon as people were asked about rape, people were all for it. So it seems to me it depends a lot on what you ask people. And also on the employees, whether they agree to give their DNA for testing. Well, does this relate to hiring of employees? Yes. So it doesn't relate to safety measures, because sometimes DNA could be gathered for the reason of that some people are more likely to remain healthy in a certain job.
Okay, we didn't specify the purpose of the DNA testing and information, but we just, our wording was that, well, we are